Hello and welcome to AORATH. I'm your host, Robin Richardson. This is so fun. This is so fun because we were talking last week about the insane, beautiful algorithmic reflection of me recording an episode about authority and I literally use the example of the co-pilots being afraid to speak to the pilots who were flying the planes into cliffs and people dying because co-pilots are afraid to stand up to authority. And then the next week, of course, not even, like maybe 2 days later, I see that Nathan Fielder has a new show, or season 2 of the Rehearsals out. So I watch it, and the opening scene is like directly, it's like it took it out of my head and put it on the TV, and there I'm watching the pilot and the co-pilot, and then there's the crash, and then there's Nathan Fielder. So I'm syncing up with this fella in extraordinary ways, and it doesn't stop. So you can watch it in real time. You're seeing the synchronicity of the nature of reality. And if you know me and you know my content well, I had a near-death experience in 2020, and what happens in the near-death experience and why I'm so interested in the kind of, I call it the algorithm of reality, like the way that the whole thing, the kind of like, you know what it is? It's the physics that physicists haven't figured out yet, and they're not looking in the right place yet. But when you die, or when you have the dimethyltryptamine released in your brain, you become so hyper intelligent that the patterns become completely clear. And it's such a gift because you see the way that your mind is the organizing principle. Your consciousness is the organizing principle of your entire reality. And that was the whole point of my previous podcast, was to explain, you're doing this, it's all you, so start doing it on purpose. And here's how. And here's how it works. Your thoughts, your feelings, your resonance, the way that you're moving through the world, the way that you're thinking through the world is what's shaping the world. So move and think on purpose. That's what I'm saying. Do it on purpose. And so I talked about last week, Nathan, I talked about how he would use real life rehearsals. He creates replicas of situations to put himself through them and other people to prepare to sort of perfect an execution of a major life event, right? And then I said, well, you could also do this in your head. And this is what I do. And I talk about this a great deal. I not only rehearse, but I create in my head. And then if you create it enough and you spend enough time with it in your head, you eventually, it makes it so much easier to aim yourself at the thing and then achieve it. And of course, then the season finale is released of the Rehearsal, and that's exactly what he does. It's exactly what he does. It's great. Well, let me tell you about the show. And spoiler alert, okay, first and foremost, and that's a big deal. So before I tell you all of this, I will say, please watch the show. Watch the show. Like, stop listening to me and watch season 2 of The Rehearsal by Nathan Fielder on HBO. Don't keep listening to this podcast unless you're going to watch that. Or if you never will, fine. But watch it first and then come back. I mean it. Because I'm going to talk about the whole thing. I think it's genius. Genius. So Nathan is preoccupied with, as we say, with aviation safety. And it's really interesting because in the beginning of the season, you don't know how serious he is and he talks about that. He's a comedian. He's a clown. More so than a comedian, he's a clown. And a lot of his content has been destructive and irreverent. And I mean, I appreciate that, but it does flirt with not leaving the world a better place necessarily. Although I think that disrupting norms is always a good thing. I will say that. But what happens in the evolution of this season is you realize that he takes it so seriously that in order, what his goal here is to create, is to, how do I say, to make a difference in terms of making sure that pilots are better educated on how to communicate with one another, especially in situations like when the pilot is doing something wrong, and how to speak up and how to express feelings. And the kind of catch-22 of the fact that a pilot can be fired if they go see a psychiatrist and reveal something that shows that they're unstable. So pilots, they're not expressing themselves. They're not processing their emotion. They're not getting any help. So they're tightly wound people, and this is potentially very dangerous. So it's a really noble cause. And what's exquisite is that Nathan goes on to get his piloting license so that he can, well, I won't get into too much of the details, but he gets his piloting license. And it's extraordinarily difficult for him because he's clearly autistic. And so as he's really struggling to do the landing, and he's a slower learner than anyone else in the class. And somebody recommends to him, so this is the thing, for entertainment purposes, he's always going to create elaborate real-life situations to do his rehearsals. But this was a real situation where he really wanted to learn to fly. And he was grounded for a while, I forget the reason. And somebody advised him to fly in his head, sit in the posture, and fly in your imagination, and land in your imagination. And not only that, land successfully. And then imagine yourself saying to your friends and family, oh, it was a great flight, I landed really well. So he does this for, I think, 2 to 6 months, I can't remember. And this is when it really breaks through for him. I mean, think about it. You can get in a plane how many times a week or day? Not that many. In your head, you can do this over and over and over again, and you can keep going back to the difficult moment. If the hardest part of landing is a 2-minute stretch, within 4 hours of getting to the airport, getting in the plane, getting it up in the air, in your mind, you can dedicate yourself to that 2 minutes over and over and over and perfect it. So he's creating reality, and he did it. And a really interesting thing is the first commercial flight he flew a commercial flight full of passengers after practicing exclusively in a simulated system. I mean, extraordinary what simulation can accomplish. Really extraordinary. And if you have a good mind, if you have a good imagination, and that's something I do believe anyone can cultivate. I hope so, because it's so powerful. So this is something, now this practice is what I think put me on the map back when I had my old podcast. And I'm almost afraid to talk about it now because in my experience in kind of the underworld, I was able to see the negative perceptions attached to the practice of reality creation, the level of so I choose my words carefully now because I want AORATH to be accessible to a wider audience, not just people who are comfortable in the feminine, spiritual linguistics, but people who are engineering-minded, rational-minded. So that's why I don't use certain words, and why instead I use a little bit more scientific terminology. So I'll say thinking on purpose to ensure a certain outcome. So when what put me on the map with that was, and this became a really regular practice for me after 2020. I was in an apartment in Parkdale, Toronto, and I had a spontaneous, it was like I went from using 5% of my brain to 40. I was off the charts, hyper tuned in, hypersensitive. I was picking up all kinds of, I was like a radio station that went from 1 station to 12. And I knew that I couldn't stay in the city. I couldn't stay in the city. I mean, I could hear Wi-Fi signals. Like, I could feel my neighbors' emotions. I could not stay in the city. I had some savings. I didn't even have a car. So I knew that I had to move to the country. And it was in the middle of lockdowns. And at the time, the only way to move to the country was to buy a house. I had no stable employment. I was a poet. But I had made a lot of money from my business of editing and mentoring other writers. So I began the practice, and all I had was my apartment. I mean, it was lockdown. So all I did was I lay on my couch for 2 weeks straight, and I did nothing but imagine myself in my perfect home. And I was very specific. I walked through the house. I felt the sun on my face. There were certain things I wanted. I knew I didn't have a car, so I wanted to be within biking distance of a small town, but I didn't want to be in a town. I wanted to be where there were no wires, no cables, no stores. I wanted a dirt road. I wanted a farm that I could walk to and get fresh food. I wanted the ocean. And I wanted an acre of land so that no matter how much they locked us in, I could walk around. I pictured all of this, and I wanted room in my home, and I wanted a wood stove. I pictured all of this until I had attuned my entire being to that house. I pictured it until walking around my Parkdale apartment, it was already like I was walking through a ghost. Because I belonged in that house and I was going to be in that house. I didn't wish for it. I didn't hunt for it. I just felt myself there. And I knew I would be there. I knew I was already there in a sense. And then I went about my days in the summer in Toronto, and I enjoyed that summer immensely. I enjoyed that summer like someone who knew it was my last summer in the city. And then one day I opened my computer and I don't even remember clicking on this link. I mean, I was not strictly looking because the odds of finding something in my price range, but one day there was just this picture of this red house for $280,000 on the ocean, on a dirt road across from a farm, with well water, with apple trees, with berry bushes. And within a week, that house was mine. And even the fact that I got approved for financing was insane. I did call like 4 different banks, and then one just took a liking to me. And it was done. And then a friend drove me over there, and I lived in that house for 2 years. It saved my life. I mean, I would have gone absolutely crazy had I stayed in the cities. So I know that one's harder to believe because for the scientific minded, Nathan Fielder imagining landing that plane, that's practice. And I can see how a left-brain person would have a hard time jumping from practicing something in your head and then executing it well in real life, which is a very, understandable feat, to practicing being in a house and then being in that house in real life. I'll say a few things to that. One, I'll say the more clear you are about what you want, the more likely you are to get it. When you know what you're aiming for. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make strategically in life, is sometimes you need a goal just so you don't wander around the desert for 40 years. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up anywhere. And it's also going to be very easy for you to be magnetized to something that isn't ideal. So having a goal can be, in and of itself, and focusing on that goal can really help just that in and of itself. But there is a deeper metaphysical truth to this. And that metaphysical truth is this reality is a projection of consciousness. And I say that as somebody, so whatever you are the creator of it. And again, I say this as somebody who was able to see it in real time through the near-death experience. Your whole life is laid before you, and suddenly, and I explained this, I think last time, like a TV, you're seeing the pixels. You understand the mechanics of it. And the mechanics of reality, as I understand it, is reflective and projected. And so doing it on purpose is so important, because what most people are doing is they're reacting unconsciously and recreating the very thing that they're seeing. So here's the real pivot point. Here's the real trick. Most people will encounter a situation that they don't like, right? My friend betrayed me. I don't like that. So I feel betrayed. So I feel angry. So I'm going to betray them. So why? Why? Like, where is that getting you? It's reactive. You're reacting to the situation. And then what? You're just making more of the same thing. And then you're attracting another situation like that, and then another, and then another, and then another, because you're practicing that frequency, that belief. You're practicing that scene. You're living in that scene. You're rehashing that scene in your head. And a lot of people, so most people are not thinking on purpose. Most people are reacting without thought and digging themselves deeper into holes that they should be getting out of. I hate this hole, and they focus on hating the hole, and that digs the hole deeper. It increases the groove. Actually, that's one way I see when I say AORATH engineering. It's because we are engineering reality, and there are mechanisms you can see. Grooves are one of the mechanisms. So if you have a groove of people don't like me, and I have that one, especially lately, the more you practice it, the more you're upset about the thing, the more you're looking for evidence of it, the more you're finding evidence of it, so you're digging the groove deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like people who complain about the same thing every day, because the more they complain about it, the deeper the groove, and then it becomes the only thing they know how to talk about. And you see that more and more, where people are just stuck in the grooves. People are also, I think, so again, and Nathan Fielder is so good at reflecting how humans do this, because he comes into situations with such absurdity, and you see that people do not question the nature of their reality. They do not question it. He's so absurd, and they never stop to think, is this a thing? Are you doing a thing? Like, what the fuck is this, right? Or they never say no. They never say no to him. It's so absurd. Because they're just kind of going along with the social norms. And that's been a theme of AORATH so far. We've talked about not being able to express anger or grief because you're not supposed to, right? And same with that authority episode. So now we're talking about how we think. And a lot of people will nod. And like I said, I lost friends because I stopped being able to nod when I didn't agree with something. And then people feel judged, right? If that person says, oh, she's so ugly in that shirt. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to corroborate. I would never look at a human and think that they're ugly and then say so. That's not something I support. I don't judge you for doing it, but you're going to feel judged by my lack of response. And so humans are so often outside themselves in just reacting and responding without intention. So another, and one more example of this is that when you pause, you're not looking at your phone, you're not talking to a friend. When you are thinking, what are you thinking? Most people, they're recycling the same thoughts over and over. And most of the thoughts are complaints or looking at the past and being upset about it. How often, and I mean this will change your life. How often do you sit down and think constructively on purpose? Now, I know if you're creative, you do, right? Creative people are thinking about their book. They're thinking about the next post they're going to make. That is constructive creative thinking. But what about applying it to life? So what about looking at the social situation where you betrayed yourself and rehearsing it again and again and again until you stand up for yourself in just the right way, and you stand up for the person who's being bullied or judged in just the right way without judging anyone else. And you practice it again and again and again. And then you practice, what kind of life do you want? Now, most people don't do that. They don't do it, and it sticks them. And it really is why, like, the lower class stays low, the middle class stays middle, and the upper class stays upper. Because they only know how to practice what it is they've already seen. And they don't practice anything else. So they're always thinking, like, the lower middle class is always thinking not about what they want, but what about they perceive they can do from where they are. Well, I know I can get this kind of job. I can go to school and get a degree and get this job, and I can find a mate that fulfills these 4 or 5 qualities. Like, and it just becomes automated. And what about really sitting there with yourself? Like, all that time that you spend looking back and remembering things, or being upset about things, or looking at your phone. What if you sat there and you thought, and you let yourself really let the thoughts come to you? And you know what I want to say? I don't even want to say thinking on purpose here. I want to say lead with feeling. The feeling will precede the thought. If you start to, I just need to get something here. If you start with, a feeling of great comfort and love, and just sit with that feeling, let it come to your heart. If you need to use an image of a child's face or your dog or whatever, let that feeling of beautiful love come into your heart. And once you're in the heart, and you can feel it, I do this all the time. I can feel a swelling in my heart. Okay, now you're talking. What else comes to mind? This is really, really important. What else comes to mind once you're in that love feeling? What other images are aligned with it? And that's how I got to my house in the country, because I just started to feel really good. Because I was meditating, and that helps too, because I wasn't unconsciously thinking about crap or reaching for things all the time. And then I just saw green. I just saw clouds, and it was so good. And then I started on purpose to get myself there. And then I started to make sure that my thoughts were always aligned with that. So, and then my actions, right? So I wasn't entangling with any relationships in the city, or involving myself with anyone that would anchor me in or distract me from that goal. I was focused on that goal, and I wasn't saying anything that would ruin my chances of getting that house. So the more clear you are on the thing that you want, the more you're able to sort of intentionally shape your actions around achieving it. And it's not just about getting what you want, It's like, think about life as you're either getting tossed around by what everybody else wants from you, or you're moving towards things on purpose. And you're creatively, and I will say this for my sake too, we need more true creativity in the world. And I don't mean, and this is huge. I don't mean, we don't need more artists necessarily. We don't need more people making paintings. Like, paintings are fun. Like, I don't want to see another canvas, to be honest. Like, it's fine. I'm not against it. Like, paint, it's fun. But make your life art. Make your life art. Why is everyone doing the same thing? If you're going to be an architect and erect a building, why the hell isn't it bulbous and pink? Why is everything the same? What is going on? Think on purpose. Think absurdly. You don't have to follow the same collective grooves again and again and again. And I'll go back to Nathan Fielder, because his work is to do that exact disruption, to show people the absurdity of their consistent, blind, thoughtless regularity. Think. you have infinite potential here with this life. I mean, you could tomorrow decide to start wearing an upside down face mask, like a mask that is a face that is upside down. And you could become a legend overnight for doing just some shit like that. I mean, be legendary, be extraordinary. And I say that not out of like some sort of motivational speech or like you're extraordinary. This is a crazy thing that the contemporary culture is doing. You're not exceptional. Don't listen to those people who tell you to reach for the stars, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever, weird, why not? But it's not about reach. I'm not trying to say like, I'm not trying to sell you on, you could be a millionaire or reach for this. I'm trying to sell you on like, make this world more interesting by being exceptional. You should all start being exceptional because I'm really sick of everybody being so exceptional. I really am. Wow me, wow the world, wow each other. And use your brain intentionally to create new paths, to create better interactions with people. Instead of thinking that person is so stuck in their way, thinking, how am I going to unstick them? Be constructive. Be constructive and practice it. You go there, you've got to feel it. And you can start to, here, I'm going to take it to another place. The other important thing here is the more you can understand other people, the better you're going to be in these strategies. So, for instance, in getting the house, in getting that loan, I had to be able to, in the moment that I wooed that banker, that was a moment of putting myself in his shoes and responding appropriately and behaving appropriately. Like, what does he need to hear? And I could tell the fact that I was a young woman, in a lot of cases, worked against me. With him, there was I was able to express myself in such a way that made him think that I was on the cusp of being a millionaire. That's what I did. And it wasn't that I was a young woman in any kind of sexual way. It was like he was compelled by the energy of potential and by the energy of being part of something that was going to be really special. And I just subtly played into that. And you can... And again, it's interesting because it feels manipulative to say, but on the other hand, I've spent most of my life not being manipulative at all, meaning be so genuinely myself that I have been taken advantage of, brutalized. And I mean, it's been a horrible life from the vantage point of just being unstrategically truthful. Again, not talking about being untruthful, but I'm talking about putting yourself in other people's shoes. And here's a good example of what I mean by this. So it's not manipulative, but it's like being situationally aware. It's situational awareness. When I had these villains in my head who were very left-brained, very critical, and very brutal, I had to stop being so bombastically Robin and start looking at myself through their eyes, through this man's eyes in particular. This man thought I was the most hippy-dippy, woo, arrogant piece of fluff. That's what he felt about me. And once I saw myself through his eyes, I was like, oh God, I see it. He is not wrong. Not from his perspective. And that's very humbling. It's very humbling. There are a lot of people who thought I was a genius, but he did not. He did later, but you know why he did later? Because I adjusted my delivery. I adjusted my language. I stopped using language that was going to be off-putting to him. I started to learn the things he would react to, the things he felt were unstable, the things he felt were invalid, the things he felt were overly feminine and therefore off-putting to his scientific mind. And I started to speak for him. And as soon as I started to speak for him, peace began to descend between us and respect began to blossom. And he said, Robin, you're brilliant. God, it took 6 months of him calling me an idiot. Oh, God. But, and I think all of us, I mean, every human, and this is the tragic thing, everyone listening, you're all so brilliant in such particular ways. And I think that if you don't believe it, it's because you haven't known how to present yourself to a world that is not good at perceiving. Like, I always assumed that people were good at perceiving vastly, but everyone's got their own filters, and we have to be good at kind of, I think of the movie Last Unicorn, where this witch lady, evil lady, kidnaps the last unicorn and puts her in a traveling fair, and so everyone's to go look at the unicorn, but the average person can't perceive the horn on a unicorn. They can't see it. It's too high. The frequency of it is too fast moving. I don't want to say high. See, here's the thing: high vibration or high frequency are words that would be off-putting to the scientific minded. So it's just they like have spells attached to them. Oh, she said spells. That's not good either. But what I mean by high frequency is like, if you have a car moving 100 miles an hour, you can see it move fast, right? If you have a car moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you'll never see it. You'll never see it. It's moving too fast. It's moving too fast. So the horn of the unicorn is moving too fast for the visual, the human eye to see. So that's a lot of like when you, and this is like, I'm just going to translate spiritual shit for scientific minded people. When your girlfriend is like, I saw a ghost, and you're like, ghosts aren't real, I didn't see anything, you're crazy. Maybe she perceives on a spectrum higher than you do, dumbass. And maybe science just hasn't caught up to it yet, what certain people can see. Anyways, where was I? The scientific minded, translating for these guys. Oh, yeah. So it's that mirror reflective self. It's like you might feel a certain way about yourself based on the way the world's been telling you are, or your value is based on its own stupid. Let me tell you, the world is stupid. People are stupid. They're really stupid. And so how they make you feel about yourself or how they perceive you, don't even. Like, it's like you've got to kind of like play to it while not caring about it. Don't take it on as yours, but learn how to present yourself in such a way that they're going to see you clearly. You know what I mean? I hope that helps. I know I'm kind of tangenting, but I tend to do that. The other thing I want to say, back like intelligence. I said the world is stupid. I was thinking about this too. Our culture right now really values intelligence, kind of. And I just want to say compassion, humility, consistency, stability, groundedness, humor. What I mean to say is to define yourself or your value based on certain societal structures, particularly beauty, money, and intelligence. Can I tell you, here's the thing. What beauty and money, people possessing beauty and money and intelligence it gets a lot for them. It's not helpful to other people. I like beauty, money, and intelligence. I also want them for myself. But those are not the qualities I look for in other people. If you are compassionate, if you are non-judgmental, if you are a clear communicator, or not a clear communicator, but totally comfortable with the fact that you're not. If you're an authentic person, if you're a present person, if you're a caring person, if you're a consistent person, if you're a creative person, if you're a funny person. These are highly undervalued qualities that are exceedingly more valuable than the ones that are lauded right now as the pinnacle of human expression. So what I'm inviting you to do with AORATH, and AORATH is all about understanding the engineering of reality and not just relying on a physics textbook to do so. I'm inviting you to recognize the current grooves in your mind, in society, in the collective, and intentionally forge new grooves. Write a new story. That's another thing I'll add to this. I have really deeply, I'll share this kind of revealing, but I've always held this story of this kind of sob story around my life. And it's fair enough, it's been a brutal life, but I'm trying to date. It never goes past one date. I'm not compatible with humans anymore at any level, but God bless me for trying. But I was on a date with this guy, and he was perceiving me as, and I was kind of doing it a little bit on purpose, but he was perceiving me as spoiled, but in a way that was really compelling to him. And I'd heard someone else say spoiled too. I mean, I have a good education. I had my own memory of my own life was not that, but I realized with spoiled is something that I always felt like you want to run away from, right? Like that's a really negative attribute. You don't want to be that girl. But then I was like, maybe I do want to be that girl. Because when he was looking at me like, he was saying spoiled with a smirk in his eye, like he couldn't wait to spoil me. He wasn't saying spoiled like you're mean to the waitress. Like that's not what he meant. And I'm not. But he meant like, so this is a big one. This is actually a really good example of a real-time recalibration, because I'm dealing with it in real time, because I spoiled equals bad in my mind. Like that's a bad thing and it's an insult. But psychologically, if you're a woman and you meet men and they think you were daddy's girl and other men spoiled the crap out of you, they're much more likely to treat you well. Duh! Like, you are the story you're practicing, right? And I suddenly was able to look at my life and be like, it wouldn't be a lie to say I was an only child. I had an abundance of freedom. I had an abundance of space. I never had to share anything. Did I have a whole lot of things? No, but I didn't have to share the things I had with anybody. So and I've had wonderful opportunities in my life, and people have given me some wonderful opportunities. So it's not a lie to say that I've been a bit spoiled, and I've even grown to be a very particular person. So there are attributes of spoiled that I have, like I want the lighting to be just right, and I want the temperature to be just right, and I want the sound to be just right. Like if I go on a date, it has to be perfect or I'm walking out. And that's so spoiled. I never thought that about myself. But I'm like, yeah. And he saw me as this very particular person, and I could see he was so willing. Like this man would have been so good to me. And he's a great guy. I'm just waiting for like true love. But you see, this is the recalibration in real time. I'm letting go of the sob story that I've over-identified with my entire life. And I'm letting some man look at me like she's been dating nothing but millionaires and they've been treating her like a goddess. And I'm like, that's actually a great idea. Why not? Why not? And all it takes is looking at my own life from a different angle. I don't have to tell the same stories. I can tell different stories, and they're both true. So ask yourself where in your life you've been practicing something that paints you. Like if every date you go on, you're like, people treat me like crap. Well, you know what? Here's a better way. Here, let me put it this way, and this is a fact. When you walk through a neighborhood that's trashed, or you go to somebody's house where there's garbage everywhere, and like it's not cared for, where are you gonna put your empty glass? Like probably still in the sink, but But you know what I mean? You're more likely to leave garbage in a dirty place. That's what I'm saying. Because it's inviting it. It's saying that this is how I want to be treated. This is how I treat myself. This is how everyone treats me, like a trash can. So if the apartment looks like a trash can, you're much more likely to treat it like a trash can. Where do I put the garbage? Well, obviously anywhere. So if you want people to treat your apartment better and not leave garbage in it, you've got to clean up your apartment. And it's the same thing. If you want people to treat you well, you've got to practice the story and practice the presentation of somebody who gets treated well. And this, again, most people aren't thinking on purpose. I wish we lived in the kind of world where people were like, I'm just going to treat people well because. But it's not so. People treat people well because people tell them how they want to be treated, and then they act accordingly. And they don't tell them how they want to be treated with words. You can tell someone, I want you to treat me well. No, but that's not how we tell. We tell by the stories, by the way we hold ourselves, by the things we let people get away with or not. So it means being intentional every second of every day, really. How are you standing? How are you holding yourself? What kind of people and things are you looking at and towards, and what do you want? And this, again, going back to the dating thing, for me, that's why I don't go on second dates, because I know exactly what I want. And I don't care if you're the nicest, most handsome guy. That's not, I know what I want. It's very specific. And that saves me a lot of time, and it saves them a lot of heartbreak. You know, I'm not gonna spend my summer with somebody just to break it off with them. I'm too old for that. So it's about knowing, and knowing takes thinking on purpose. So I think that's all I'll say for this episode. What else? Let me see if I have anything else to add. We've got a whole other week until I speak again. You know, I was going over I'm redesigning my website. Surprise, surprise. And I'm going over my old reviews from Lighten Up Your Eternal. And I think one of the greatest tragedies, it is the greatest tragedy of what happened to me, is that I deleted my account for Lighten Up Your Eternal and lost all of those thousands of listeners. And I was reading through the reviews and posting them, and it was so good, because I had just been feeling really downtrodden, and like people were not responding to me well. And I read those and I thought, oh my God, people got so much out of Lighten Up Your Eternal, and you were so sweet to me. I had so many people writing me to say they loved me, and on Apple Podcasts saying, I love you, Robin, you're so great, you've helped me so much. And God, that just lit up my heart. And I want to say that I've noticed in the world things have gotten colder. I don't know if it's just me or if it's everybody, but you know, most of the comments I see all over the place now, and sometimes I'm on Reddit these days, it's just so brutal, but everyone loves to be backhanded and double-edged. And that, I'll tell you right now, it's never okay, and you never deserve it. You never do. You never do. When somebody is mildly insulting to you, or even says, you know what your problem is? This. And if you fix that, you'll be all better. I will tell you, you deserve compassion and kindness and encouragement, not critique. And there are compassionate ways, and I know I do it practically for a living. There are compassionate ways to help someone understand what they're doing that's not aligned, and how to move into alignment with what they're doing without saying, you know what, you're too in your ego. Someone talks to you like that, they're sick, not you. And they're wrong. They're wrong not because you're not too in your ego, but because you're not wrong. It's okay to be too in your ego, or it's okay to be whatever it is you've been called. And you need to be told that it's okay, and here's how you can do better if you want. But honestly, you don't need to do anything, because you're a human being, and it's beautiful, and you're loved unconditionally. And I am so sorry that the world can be so cold and so critical. And I want you to know that when you're here in this space with me, you'll never experience that. And because it's a horrible way to be. It's horrible to be judgmental and critical of others, and especially to offer it up like that. And there's nothing wrong with you. And I mean that, like, even if everything's wrong with you. You know what I mean? It's funny, I'm checking myself. I'm like, I just promised them that I'll never do this thing. What if I do it? What if I betray them? What if I am mean? I don't think it's good to make blanket promises. I'm already aware of that. So I take it back, but but I mean it too. I mean that you're so... I'm dedicated to making this a safe space, and there's no part of me that you could stand in front of me with all your monstrousness and all your evil. And I'm not going to let you hurt me, but you're going to know that you're loved. And I do hate the world for not being like that. And as somebody who's going through the ringer right now and who has been for a few years, it's a terrible place like that. So I hope I can provide a space for you, and I really hope to get the old listeners back somehow. So find me. I'm shining the light from the lighthouse on the cliff. Bring your ships. Bring your ships. Don't crash into the cliffs. Please stop crashing into the cliffs. Okay, I love you very much, and I will talk to you next week.